Jewish audio on Chabad.org.
Likutei Torah, Parshas Pinchas, page 76c. Biur al posuk es korbani lachmi. Hine ksiv, now it's written lo ovda ula shamra. That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu put Adam in Gan Eden, the purpose was to work on it and to guard it. Sheha Adam hu ha'isa haGan Eden, because Adam, he was the one to make Gan Eden. Dehainu shehu hamamshich gilui elikus me'oren sof baruch hu lios Gan Eden, which means he is the one that draws down a revelation of godliness from the Oren Sof in Gan Eden. V'hine omra Razal, Nachazal say biyud nivra ha'olam haba, that Olam haba was created with the letter Yud. Pirush, meaning, biyud simtsum, he'ora nukuda ketana, shebe'en sof baruch hu, that the letter Yud represents a contraction into a small point from the Ohr Ein Sof, she'ein loi sof ve'ein loi ketz v'tachlis, which the Ohr Ein Sof itself has no end, les machshava tfisa be'klal, and no thought can grasp it at all, v'yevshe lios shum hasoga l'seichel nivra, and it's impossible for a created mind, intellect, to be able to grasp it, lios tainug hanashamas, that there should be a delight for souls, ella, rather, shenenim mizivoi, the only way which souls can, in Gan Eden, have tainug, have pleasure, is if they derive benefit from a ray of the Ohr Ein Sof, a fraction of it, a ziv. U'kamoshel behirus hashemesh oy ha'avuka. It can be compared to the brightness of the sun, or a large conflagration, she'i efsha lehistakel behem machmas behirusam, into which a person cannot gaze because it's so bright. V'chein hu le'inyan hasoga sheba'ohr Ein Sof baruch hu atzmoi. Similarly, in terms of perception in the Ohr Ein Sof, lo shayach shum hasoga klal. One cannot talk about any form of perception. Machmas behiruse hagodol, because of its great luminance. Ki yoshes cheshech sisroi, because only that which is shrouded in darkness can be recognized. Rak al yedei tzimtzum ha'ora nukuda ketana. In other words, it's so luminant that it can't be seen, and therefore it's termed darkness. Only through tzimtzum can one derive a small point which can be perceived. V'zeu ha'olam haba daika. And that is the world to come. Shehu gilui hasaga l'seichel nivra, which is a revelation in a perceived form for a created mind, lehisaneg, to derive pleasure from the ray of the Ohr Ein Sof. V'lachein olam haba nivne al midas hadin hakosher, and that is why the world to come is built on the attribute of strict judgment, kimuvur b'svarim, as explained in Svarim. She'olam hazeh nemer by olam chesed yiboneh, because this world is said about it that it is a world built on kindness. Ma she'en ken olam haba hu midas hadin, whereas in contrast, the world to come is built on the attribute of judgment. Shahari yisuri olam hazeh, because the pains and afflictions of this world, nikroim yisurim shal ava v'chesed, they are called pains of love and kindness. Ki yisurim emarkim, because pains and afflictions cleanse a person. V'yisuri olam hazeh, and the afflictions of this world, ibud mammon, losing money, v'noikef etzboi, or cutting one's finger, ein aroich legabe yisuri Gehenim. They cannot be compared to the afflictions of Gehenim. Sheha'eish echad mishishim, because fire of this world is 1/60th of the fire in Gehenim. Uma shehoyoroi lidoin beGehenim be'olam haba, and one who should have been judged in Gehenim in the world to come, mechashvin kenegdo yisurei olam haza hakalim, reckoned against him are a small amount of pains and afflictions in this world, which offset the tremendous suffering in the world to come. V'harei chesed. So it comes out that this little bit of suffering in this world is a kindness. Masha enken ba'olam haba onshim Gehenim, whereas in contrast in olam haba, the punishment of Gehenim, lefi shehu nivne al toikef midas hadin hakosher, since it's built on the full power of the attribute of judgment, leshalem l'rosha ra kerishase, paying the evil person according to his wickedness. V'kol zehu mipnei, all of this because she'olam haba shehu gilui hasaga v'taineg hanashonas, is because the world to come, which is a revelation of perception and delight for souls, hu al yidei gevuras v'tzimtzumim, is built through contraction. So in other words, on one hand, the revelation to souls in olam haba, which is a tremendous delight for them, that can only be perceived through gevuros and tzimtzumim, through contractions, because the Or Ein Sof itself is far beyond any perception, and in order to have any pleasure from olam haba, from Gan Eden, it's necessary to have gevuros v'tzimtzumim, to have contractions in order that the souls should be able to perceive. However, that also results in the concept of Gehenim, of the strict judgments which also are there in olam haba. Parenthesis, yesh lomer, one may say, ki gam ha-chochma, that also chochma shehi b'chinas yud shaboy nivra ha'olam haba, which is the yud with which olam haba is built, harei his havasa me Or Ein Sof, its creation from the Or Ein Sof, hu al yidei gevuros v'tzimtzumim, is also through restrictions and contractions. V'hu ma shenimshach ha'oir v'hashefa rak al yidei b'chinas cyrus. And that is what we mean when we say that the light and comes through hairs, because a hair is a very fractional part of the brain. V'sharsha migvura da'atik yomin, and it's rooted in the gvura of Atik, hamelubeshas b'moichin stimoin, which comes clothed within the hidden moichin. V'ay mashkos b'pasha shlach ha'posach ani me'inyan sar b'smoil. Chulu, v'ay mashkos b'bira ha'posach v'le'ova Hashem v'le'kacha l'shmei al bilam chulam, sheha'isarusa delatata l'tzimtzum ugvura zu, hu gam ken al yidei sha'odam mitzamtzem esasmei b'b'chinis batel ritzeincha v'zeu inin la'avda. There it's explained that the arousal from below, which precipitates the tzimtzum above, is through the avodah in which a person here below holds themselves back and they nullify their will in the face of Hashem's will, and that's the concept of la'avda, of serving Hashem, creating a Gan Eden. Ukemavur pirish v'inyan oved elikim b'sefer shel beinim perek tesvav, as explained the concept of an oved elikim in Tanya chapter 15. B'zehu marav tuv chasha tzafantzal reyacha, And this is what it said about Olam Haba, how great is your goodness which you have hidden for those that fear you. Tzofon hu bechinas gevuros. The idea of tzofon is an idea of gevuros, shal yedei ze nimshach gilui hatayna began Eden, which only through the gevuros and tzimtzumim do we have a revelation of pleasure in Gan Eden. V'ayin mizeh bereishis chachma shar ha'ava perek vav lireyacha chulu, ki im ein yira ein chachma. As it says in Pirkei Avos, if there's no yira, there's no chachma. Yira gematzria gevura ezeu gibur hakevesh. Yira is the same gematzria as the word gevura, because who is a gibur? One who can control themselves. Close the parenthesis. This is the meaning of the pasuk, that Hashem makes known to man his gevura, his strength, and the glory of his kingship. Ziv hashchina, this ray of the Shekhinah, hein heim gevurosav. This is the manifestation of his gevura. Sheheim tzimtzumim, which they are contractions, al yedei hishtalshlus me'ila le'ila, in the chain order of creation. Malachim u'neshames, angels and souls, ein echad mehem doime lechaverei, one cannot be compared to the other. Machane Michal be'ahava davka, so the camp of Michal serves Hashem with love, u'machane Gavriel be'yira davka, and the camp of Gavriel with awe. Ve'ein lohem avas Michal be'ava, rak ava acheres be'ofen acher. And Gavriel does not have the love that Michal has, but a different type of love. Ve'hagam shekulam mikablim be'oren sof baruch hu, and even though they all receive from the Oren Sof, k'moi koyach hanashama hamispashet be'ivarim, like the power of the soul which diffuses through the limbs, shebineshama atzma, because in the neshama itself, ein ba hischalkus, there is no division of soul powers. V'afal pikein, nevertheless, koyach ha're'iyah mekabel ha'ayin, it is the eye specifically that receives the power of sight. V'koyach hashmiya mekabel ha'ezen, and it's the ear that receives the power of hearing. Ve'ein ha'ayin mekabel elechelik prati, and the eye only receives a small part, shehu koyach ha're'iyah belvad, which is the power of sight. Beli shum seichel v'hasaga, and it's without any intellect. V'haseichel v'hasaga sheire b'meichel levad, because the intellect resides specifically in the brain. Ve'ein shom koyach ha're'iyah hagashmis, and you do not have the power of sight, physical sight in the brain. Ve'oizen mekabel koyach hashmiel belvad, and the ear only receives the power of hearing. B'chayetze b'zeh, and the like b'sharei varim, with other limbs. She'ein echad doime lechaverei, one, not each one unlike the other. Se'if base. V'hine now, kol ha'hishtalshelus me'ila le'ila, all this chain order from one step to the next, hu beis bechinas makif upnimi. In general terms, there are two levels in the hishtalshelus, that which is peripheral and that which is inner. Parenthesis, makif masha ein nichnas toichakli. When we say makif, we mean that which does not enter a vessel, she'ein hakli malbishay, because the vessel does not act as a garment for the light, lefi she'ein boi hasaga chulu, because it has no perception in the light. Close the parenthesis. Umitchila nimshach hamakif, first the makif is drawn down, ve'achakach nimshach hapnimi, and thereafter the inner light is drawn down. Ki hapnimi hu he'ora ketzas mebechinas hamakif. Hanimshach, because the inner light is a ray and a fraction of the makif which is drawn down. Shenichnas liyos pnimi, because a fraction of the makif is drawn into the Pnimi. Umipnimius elyon nasa mitchila makif letachton. And from the inner dimension of the higher level starts the makif of the lower level. Ve'achakach nimshach ketzas ha'ora mimenu liyas pnimi. And the process repeats itself. V'kachu b'chol seder hishtalshalus. And so too is it in the entire chain order. Me'ema lazah, from Bina to Zeirampin, umizah chulu, and from Zah down further. Ki hakol hu bechinas makif upnimi. Each stage becoming a makif and a pnimi. Ukamoshal hadibur min hamachshava. It can be compared to speech, which comes from thought. Shaloi kol machshavta yuchal lahachnis bedibur. Because a person cannot bring all their thoughts into words. Rak efes kotseil belvad. Only a small amount of the thought actually ends up in words. V'chein min haseichel lemidos. And so it is from the intellect to the emotions. K'moi chein me ha'hisbonenus b'tefillah. And so too from the meditation in davening. Sheyev shaliyas hispayas halev kol kach b'chol koach hasagosei v'hisbonenusei. One cannot generate the excitement of the heart from one's entire perception and meditation. Raksha miskatzer koach hahavana v'hasaga. Rather, a summary is made of the understanding and perception. V'hu bechinas igulim v'yosher. And it runs in a system of circles and lines. Shemitchila nimshech igulim. First, the circles coming. Ve'achakach parts of yosher. And thereafter the lines. Shehu bechinas ha'odam koach ha're'iyah ber'ayin. Which is like the human who is arrayed in various departments of soul powers, the power of sight being in the eye, etc. Uremache vorim shoinim, and having 248 separate limbs. Ubezeh yesh ibur yunika moichin katnus v'gadlus, and in each one of these stages you have periods of gestation, of nourishment, and stages of where the brain is in a small stage and it grows to a larger stage. That's all in Yosher, in the line system. Mash'enken be'igulim, whereas in the circle, hu b'hashva l'chol tzad, everything is equal. Ubechlolius, and in general, hahashpa v'hamshacha, the influence from above, meiresh kol dargin, from the beginning of all levels, nikras b'shem ma uban, is called with the two names ma and ban. Shebechinis ma hu makif legabe ban. The level of the name ma being peripheral to that of ban. Hagam shegam shemahu pnimi, which although the name ma is also pnimi, it's also an inner influence. Ach legabe ban hu hamakif. However, in reference to the name ban, ma is a makif. Sheshoresh ma hu mimitzcha da'ak, because the root of the name ma is from the forehead of Adam Kadmon. Umetzach hu anikras tamid bechinas rotzin, and the forehead is always called the level of will. Ukamesha kosa v'hoya al mitzchay l'rotzin, as it says that it shall be on his forehead as the desirable thing. V'nikras b'zoyar raiva kol raivin, and it's called in Zohar the will of all wills. Parenthesis, I mashakosa b'bir al posa v'yosisa tzitz b'seifoi u'b'diver amasra lam lasech anashminis u'b'bir al posa mi mona afar yankev v'ay mashakosa b'mokamachar al pos al pimayim razeh b'pashas nosei b'inyan k'chaymer atav de shokit v'shokich al durdaya me'inyan ma'uban sheb'mechin stimon v'ay mashakosa b'bir al Pasuk Meisha Yedaber Im Inyan Shema Ubediver Masel Inyan Ha'ovis Heinen Amarakova ובביר על פסק ינוסי בעניין מלגה ויושמה, ובביר על פסק והנה פקן עשם הלחם הביקורים, close the parenthesis. והנה, now, Shem ban hu beginnes nukva. The name ban is feminine. Shemoir lenukva, v'zachoir leduchura. The idea of shemira is referenced to the female, and memory, zocher, leduchura, to the male. Ki malchus teir shabal peh korina lo beginnes malchus ban. Because malchus, the oral law, is called malchus and the name ban. Omnom ma hu beginnes Torah shebechsav, whereas in contrast ma is the written law, bechachma is beriru, and its way of refining is through chachma. Vahabiru hu lasis Gan Eden, and the mechanism of making this refining is to make a Gan Eden. Dahainu lahamshich oiren sof baruch hu shebebechinas makev liyes pnimi, which, as we explained previously, is to bring down the oiren sof from a peripheral level into an inner dimension. Parenthesis, va'ain mashakosa b'divra masel va'yikach koirchem inin bechinas chachma sheba sheire oiren sof u'mashakosa b'divra masel v'yahavta es v'hachachma hi koyach ma, close the parenthesis. Ve'iker ha'hamshacha, and the principal light which is drawn down, liyos bechinas bittul, is that there should be a level of bittul. Ki ein oiren sof sheire ele b'misha bottledaika, because the oiren sof can only rest on somebody who is bottle. Uma hu bechinas bittul gomor, and ma represents complete bittul, as it says v'nachnu ma, what are we? Umitchila, so in the beginning nivrer, the birur, the refining, is liyos olam ha'atzilus, to create the world of Atzilus. Shemash eine bottle sham eine shoyre gilu eiren sof, because the eiren sof only resides where there's complete bittul. Umikol mokim nidcha le'olam habriya, shebe'erech olam habriya nachshav b'chines bittul shamalachim and hashamas b'chines nivroim heim betelim. Nevertheless, the step down is in the world of Beriah, where you have souls and angels, which are also bottle. Hagam shebe'erech olam ha'atzilus ein ze bittul gomer, which although in contrast to the world of Atzilus is not a complete bittul, liuz gilu ravke be'olam ha'atzilus, there being such a greater revelation in Atzilus, nevertheless, there's a step down into Bria. Ve'achakach nidcha le'olam ha'yitzira, thereafter there's a step down into Yitzira, ashetachlis habirur hu b'madreges tachtenes teba'asiyah, until the ultimate birur is in the lowest levels of the world of Asiyah. V'hu inyan kora b'moidim, and that is manifest when we bow in the moidim prayer, kriya ba'alma, literally kneeling or bending our knees, li is kofuf bebechinas heidah, that at least the person should be bowed in a form of submission. V'yomer Razal, and Chazal say, man deloi kora b'moidim nasa nachash, that a person who doesn't kneel when they say moidim becomes a snake, shenidcha liyas nachash de klipa legamri, because they are pushed out into the level of the snake. She'ein sham ein shum birur toiv, meaning that there's nothing good to refine from them anymore. Ubezoyer ubesava de mishpatim shelo yokum betchias hamesim, and it says in Zohar that such a person will not be resurrected. V'hinei, and therefore, lachein ba'olam haba, in the world to come, one One cannot change what was achieved in this world. Ki olam habahu olam shala'achar habirur. Because the world to come is the world as it stands after the refining process. Dahainu shekvar nimshach achar habirur mishem ma hamakif, meaning that it is a world after there has been brought down the refining of the name ma, which is the makif, liyes pnimi, into the pnimi. V'gilui hasaga v'tainag l'seichel nivra, resulting in a perception and delight for the created intellect. Hare kvar nisparer hatoiv umuvdul min hara, so what good has been refined has been done, and what is bad has been rejected. Shahara nidcha legamri, the bad has been completely pushed away. Umuvdul ba'atzmai, liyos malachi chabala umazikim, and there the bad manifests itself in angels of destruction and destroyers. Masha'enkin ha'olam hazeh, whereas in contrast in this world, shehu olam habirur, which is still the world in which the refining process is ongoing, shemeir sham shema hamavara b'Torah mitzvahs, in which there shines the name ma, which does the refining in Torah mitzvahs. In this world, a person can still change and transform evil into good. And this capability of the refining of ban through the name ma, nimshach mebechinas ratzon ha'elyon, is drawn from the supernal will, Raiva kol Raivin, the will of all wills. V'alzeh omru ein tam l'rotzon, and about this they said that there's no reason to the will, shehu l'mayla mehasaga, because it transcends all perception. V'zeu nachas ruach she'amarati v'nasa ritzoni, and this is the meaning of Chazal, that there is a tremendous joy of spirit that I have said and my will has been done. Shenasa v'nimshach ratzon ha'elyon, that the supernal will has been drawn down and executed. She'ein tam v'hasaga boy, and in that will there is no reason or perception. Parenthesis, ve'efshe shenikne nachas ruach, and perhaps it's called nachas ruach, ki ruach hainu b'chines aver, oir yud, perhaps because the word ruach is aver is air or atmosphere, which is made of two parts, oir, the light of yud, shehu mekoir oisius ha-Torah, which is the source of the letters of the Torah. K'meshkos b'makamacha b'biur de mezuzah de mi'in, ba'ayin b'seir truma, u be'idre de nosei dafkuf lamed amid beis, close the parenthesis. V'zeu b'chinis Torah shebechsav, and that is a reference to the level of the written law, shehu l'mayla mehasaga, which transcends all perception. She'ikora eina ela ha'isius, because the principal level of Torah shebechsav is letters, kidemuson uketsalmon, as they are in their form, mash engen ha'halachas al burion, whereas the halacha, in order to understand them properly, efshe lahasig mit Torah shebechsav, you cannot understand it directly from the written law. Kegoin, for example, ukasharatam l'ois, when it says you should bind the tefillin as a sign, Eini yedea mahu, I don't know what it is, ad shabo Chazal, until Chazal came, upirshu daled parshias, tat bekatve, until Chazal explained it means to have the 4 parshias of tefillin, 2 tat in Katvian language, etc., the daled batim, and 4 compartments, teforon, v'alachsoinon, how they're sewed, how they're sewn, how they need to be square, v'chein sukkah gavaya chafama, also a sukkah, that it has to be less than 20 amas high. Shehu inyan hasogis harotzen, all of this is the perception of the will, shezeu kli kibul l'rotzen, the Torah Shabbat being a receptacle for the will. שבשיעור דווקא ששיעור חכמים להגבל כל מצווה ומצווה כדס malases, the Torah Shabbal Peh revealing the exact dimensions of each mitzvah. Azai, which then, when the mitzvahs are kept with their correct dimensions, Shoira umiskala rotzen elyon, the supernal will, resides in it. Ube'ivlav eino shoira. And if it's not kept properly, then there is no resting of the divine will. Se'if Gimel. V'hine now. Ein lecha tipa yoreres milamayla, she'ein tipaim oila kenegda. You do not have a drop which descends from above without a resultant 2 drops ascending from below. Heim chesed ugvura. These refer to chesed and gvura. V'hine now. Hei gevuros, heim, hei pa'amim eish. Bechines isha eish hei. The 5 gevuros are the 5 times eish, as it says in the word isha, eish hei. Shetzarech li es bechines eish shel milamata lamayla. Because there needs to be a fire from below ascending above. Ki ruach aisi ruach, because one spirit draws the other. Smoiloi tachas l'roshi, the left hand being underneath my head. Shepnei shmoy shoir shemei hasmoil, because the face of the ox which is on the left of the Merkava, hu hamagbia knesses Yisrael, that is what elevates the pool of Jewish souls. Mekoir nishmas Yisrael, which is the source of all the collective soul of Israel. Umenasa, and lifts it up tachas l'roshi, underneath my head, al diyedei bechinas gevuros, through gevura. Bechinas smoil, which is the left, hislavas hanefesh, which is the excitement of the soul. Umizeh bali de bittel, and that results in bittel, shehu lamayla mehislavas, which is higher than excitement. Ki achrei ha'eish kel demamadaka, because after the passion of fire comes the still voice, which is bittul. Uma shekosov loy be'esh Hashem, and that which is written, Hashem is not in the fire, tiretz b'tikune zoya, so the tikune zoya explains, is eish ve'is eish. There is fire and there is fire. Is rash ve'is rash, and there's noise and there is noise. Umikol mokim, nevertheless, afilu mashahu be'eish hei, mikol mokim kol dema medaka yosenala. In reference to the eish hei, the kol dema medaka, the still voice, the bittul, is higher. Parenthesis. Ki eish hainu ba'olam habriya. Because fire corresponds to the world of Bria, shesham hasrafim, which there you have the seraphim angels. Whereas the still voice is in the world of Atzilus. Now even in the world of Atzilus you also have the 4 levels of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir and Asiya. Bria Shabbat, and that's the meaning of the Tikkun Zohar, that you have fire and you have fire, which means that you also have the level of Bria in Atzilus. V'gam shom kel dema medaka nala yesa, and you also have the still voice on a higher level, shehu bechinas Atzilus Shabbat, which is the level of Atzilus in Atzilus. Close the parenthesis. However, you first need to have fire shehi halo mimata lamayla, which is a fire from below. Ve'achar kach nimshach bechinas bittul, and thereafter you draw bittul. Uke'inyan hakoyanim halaviyim, like you have koyanim and leviyim. V'zeu lachmi leishai, which is the 2 levels of lachmi and leishai. Lachmi Yisrael mefarnasin. Lachmi is the level of Yidden who give parnasa to Hashem. K'moshe hamachol meishe v'sanefesh l'hispasha baguf, just like food brings the nefesh, brings the soul to diffuse in the body. Leishai, she'al yedei zerusa delatata, through the eish hay, which means the fire from below, nasa lamayla eish yud, that precipitates the fire from above, which is the eish yud, liyas yored eish shalamayla, that the fire from above should descend. V'hainu es korbani, and this is the meaning of es korbani, es tzirufi oisir sheme alav al tov. Es are all the letters from Aleph till Tov. Korbani, liyas, nasu, krovim etzli mamish, that these letters become close to me, liyas shoyra bahem gilui alikus, so that resting in them should be a revelation of godliness. V'oiren sof mamish, and the oiren sof, al yidei lachmi leishai, through the lachmi leishai, sheme eish hay, because the fire from below, which is the eish hay, nasa eish yud, becomes and precipitates the fire from above, which is the shem ma, the name ma, nimshach mamish l'teichai, bringing the ma into the fire. V'hu bebechinas malchus da'atzilus shem ban, and that comes into Malchus of Atzilus, which is the name Ban, Ki Kol Yisrael B'nei Chulu, because all Yidden are considered B'nei Malachim. Reach Nichaychi, and that causes a sweet smell, Melamata Lamaila, because the movement from below, Ma'oirur Moichin de Ba'aba Shebegolus, arouses the mind of Abba in Golus, Hu B'china Shina V'histalkus, that is the concept of sleep and departure, v'reyachu ma'ama'orer, and the smell arouses it. Nichaychi, the word nichaychi, hu loshen heirada, is the concept of descent, v'loshen menucha, and also the concept of tranquility, hamshachas habittel, which is the drawing down of bittel. Hainu bechinas kel damamadaka, which is the still voice, Shehu Lamaila, which is higher, afilu mebechinas eish yud, than the fire from above. Tishmeru, it needs guarding. Shemor zu Mishnah, this refers to the Mishnah. Sheyiyeh bechinas kli legilui oiren sof, which the Mishnah should be a vessel to the revelation of the oiren sof, bebechinas ishai. O k'mayim razal, as Chazal say, kol ha'osik b'Torah hakadosh baruch hu she'ene kenegdoi, that anybody who engages in Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu learns opposite him. U'devarai asher samti beficha mamish, these are my words which I have placed literally in your mouth. Shezeu es korbani, that's the meaning of the es korbani. Ki harei ha'ovis hoyu chagas, because the ovis represent chesed gvurin tiferes hein ha-merkava, which is the merkava. Moshe bechinas bittel, whereas Moshe represents bittel. Val demus hakise demus kemare odom, and on the throne you have the form of a man bechinas hareichev, the rider. V'kol zehum bechinas Moshe bechinas bittel demus kemare odom, and that is the level of Moshe, which is the level of bittel, which looks like an odom bechinas reichev, the rider, shehu yesod Abba, which is the level of yesod Abba. V'nachnu ma, the form of bittul. How does the person reach that bittul? That's through tzav es b'nei Yisrael. That's through Moshe lowering himself and bringing his level down below. Connecting himself. And through that, you shall say to them, Mamira bechinas Abba, saying is the level of Abba, Sheyiyah, that there should be Udvaraya shasamti beficha, my words which I placed in your mouth, lahakriv libe moyadoi, to bring to me in its time moyed loshen v'nei adati, which the word moyed is also the idea of meeting, ashaloya oda, Yud umoyed v'noyad, hakoil loshen yud v'yichud v'chibur. Each of these expressions of yud, moyed, and noyed is all the idea of becoming one and connection. Shekol hamshoches hey mibachines Shabbos kodesh, because all these in all these things which are drawn down are from the level of Shabbos Kodesh. Hu lachem bechinas Abba is for you the level of Abba. Achu al yedei Yom Tov Mikra Kodesh. However, it comes through Yom Tov, which is a Mikra Kodesh, bechinas Ema, which is Bina. Ela shagam sham hu islabshas Abba be'ima. Even there, it comes through the clothing of Abba in Ima, of Chachma in Bina. Pesach milamata lamaila. Pesach is the movement from below, hu bechinas Avram. That's the level of Avram. Tefillah Shacharis, which is the davening of Shacharis. Techila Olam HaAsiyah, Shacharis starts in the world of Asiyah. Ad Baruch She'amar Pesukei de Zimra, hu Olam HaYitzira, and ascending thereafter in Pesukei de Zimra, going up into the world of Yitzira. V'Yotzer Oyer is the world of Bria. Utfila, and the Shemona Esrei, who Bittul is the level of Bittul. V'Hamshacha Milamayla Lamata, and drawing from above. Mash'enken mincha loshem menucha, whereas mincha is an expression of menucha. She'en sham ela tefillah shemona esrei bilvad, where you only have the amida. Ve'arvez yesh begam ken krishma utfila. Ma'ariv has also krishma and tefillah. Ela she'en marichin, but we are not marich. We don't say ma'ariv at length. Lefi sheYaakov kolol mishnehem, because Yaakov is inclusive of both levels. V'gam tefillah Shacharis klula akedas Yitzchak be'Avram, and also the davening of Shacharis includes Yitzchak in Avram. V'gam meid loshen or kakala tada keileha shehu loshen ade v'kishut, and the word meid is also an expression of adornment, as the kala adorns herself with jewelry, which is a reference bechinas keser to the level of keser. V'ayin mashkosa b'divra maschal eila pekude b'inin mishkan ha'edus, v'ayin me'inin es korbani b'zoyer chelik hala v'yetzei, u'memoir oir niska b'zoyer netzach v'heid alayu itzmer es korbani chulu, v'ayin sham b'bira apostle tzenu rena b'soifa de netzach v'heid, heim b'chines eisias ha'teira, u'me'inin rech nichoichi b'parshas b'kudei, u'me'inin lahakriv li b'parshas shmois, u'me'inin b'moide b'parshas lech lecha. V'ayin b'medresh v'yikra rabba Perek Beis or b'medresh Shechatei Perek Yotes me'inin tishmeru lahakrivli v'ayin mashakos me'inin zel posuk ve'irastichli v'ayin zer chelekar of parsha v'yichi or mashakos mizeh b'bira posuk yeinosi or b'posuk shirashirim chulu. Kitzer. Now we're going to make a summary. Mipirush ha'posuk tzavis b'nei Yisrael, from the entire posuk tzavis b'nei Yisrael. Tzav loshen tzavsa. The word tzav means connection. Sheyiyah nimshach bechinas Moshe, and it means that Moshe, the level of Moshe, should be drawn down. Lios b'tzavsa choda in b'nei Yisrael, to be one with Yidden. So tzavas b'nei Yisrael means that Moshe, the level of Moshe, should be drawn down and one with Yidden. V'al yedei zeh, through that connection, v'yomarata alehem, you shall say to them, Shal yidei ze yumshal lahem koyach hadibur, you, through that connection, should draw to them the power of speech, liyos yichudu bitl dibur ha'adam edvar Hashem, that their words, the words which the Yidden utter, should be the Dvar Hashem. In other words, in their words, they should have the oneness and the bitl that they mouth the words of Hashem. V'zeu es korbani, and this is the meaning of es korbani. Es hein bechinis ha'osis me'alef ad tov, that the letters from aleph to tov, which is in the word es, hein korbani, they are my korban, meaning korovim elai, they are close to me, umekorvin oisi, and draw me close. U'kameshakosef, as it says, u'devoraya shasamte bificha, my words which I place in your mouth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, keira v'shena kenegdai, because when a person mouths those words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds and reads opposite the person, and therefore we draw him close through those words. Val yedei zeh gam kin lachmi leishai, and through that there will be resulted lachmi leishai. Ishai is Eish Yud, Shehu Bechinas Eish Sheyored Melamayla. Eish Yud is the fire which comes from above, Mi Bechinas Seviv Kolalmin, from the level of Seviv, Lahalis Yesod Ha'esh Shebenafshei Habahamis, which elevates the element of fire in the animal soul, Bechinas Isha Eish Hay, which is the level of Isha, which is the fire of the hay. Parenthesis. V'ayin mashkosav divra maschal v'hoyolachem letzitzis u'b'seif divra maschal kiseitze gabe yonasane Hashem v'ayin shom b'divra maschal al ken yemru hamoshem be'inyin shal heves ka u'mashakosav b'divra maschal atem nitzavim be'inyin ki avaya lekecha eish eichluhu u'mashakosav seif divra maschal kavayem zayichaber be'inyin b'nikra satsur. Close the parenthesis. Sham shochazu de bechinis eish yud, because this drawing down of the fire of the Yud, who alidei lachmi, Yisrael mefarnasin, is through my bread, meaning that Yidden give parnasa to Hashem, parenthesis, ki halechem nepach ledam, because the bread is transformed into blood, bechines choim, which gives heat, v'yesod ha'eish, and the element of fire. V'hainu ha'korbanos, which are the korbanos, shenikroim lachmi, which are called my bread. V'ayin b'ma'oyer oyer ois lamer sif chaf aleph kama b'chines shenikras lechem v'lechem mishnah. V'yesh lefarish leb'chines isha eish hei nikras lachmi l'ishai leb'chines eish yud al derech masher kosev ki es alechem masher hu eichel v'chein kiren loy v'yeichel lechem v'parsha shmeis. Close the parenthesis. V'rotzalema, this means to say ki hu yichud mashpia umekabel. What results is the unity of the mashpia and the receiver. Al derech b'yom chasonos zu matan Torah, like the day of the wedding, which was the day of matan Torah. Ki yud hu b'chines mashpia, because the yud represents the giver. Ki inim b'yud nivra ha'olam haba, as it says with yud, the world to come was created. The hay b'chines makabel, and the hay is the level of the receiver. Ki inim b'hei nivra olam hazeh, that with the hay this world is created. V'zeu gamkin inu reich nichoichi, which is also the concept of reich nichoichi. Parenthesis. O yesh lema, or one can say, shalihiyos es korbani sheyiyah ha'osius krevim elai, in order to achieve es korbani, that the letter should be close to me. Zeu alidei lachmi l'ishai. That's through lachmi l'ishai. Ki alideho isarusa delatata, because through the arousal from below, nimshach b'Torah, there is drawn in Torah b'chines gavoya yoseh, the higher level, v'inyan reich nichechi hamshachas kel demamadaka shalamaylam b'chines eish yud, and you have the reich nichechi, which is the highest form of bittul, which is higher than eish yud. Close the parenthesis. V'acha kach, and thereafter tzarich li is tishmeru. Shemoyer zu Mishnah. Thereafter, you need to guard this through the Mishnah. Sheyeh nishmer belev ha'adam b'chines li'ishai eish yud. You need to guard the fire of the yud. Shaloyeh b'chines peilates. You shouldn't let it out. You need to guard it. V'kol zeh b'chines dibur, all of which is through speech. Shuhu Talmud Torah, which is the learning of Torah. Shal zeh nemer es karbani v'tishmeru, which is es korbani, the letters of the Torah, which need to be guarded. Ubechinis machshava, and the level of thought, zu tefillah, which is davening. Al zeh nemer, about that it says lahakrivli, that you need to draw it close to me. Hamshachas ein soif shebachachma, which is drawing ein sof in chachma. Bechinis Shabbos Kodesh b'mayadai, drawing the level of Shabbos Kodesh into Yontif. Yom Tov Gimel Mayadim, into the 3 Yomim Tovim, Shehei Mikroi Kodesh, which call Kedusha, Mamshichim B'chines Kodesh B'Tfilas Yimei Achol, and draw the level of Kodesh into the davening of the weekday. Al derech chulin shenaso al taras HaKodesh, like mundane, which is permeated with taras HaKodesh. V'nikras the eskarmini, and this eskarmni is called Zeu Yichud Zun, is a yichud, a unity of Zah and Nukva. Achin lahakriv liba me'adai, but the drawing near to me in my moyed Zeu Yichud Ava, that is a yichud of Chachma and Bina. V'hu ke'in in Mashakasav al-Pasuk Eile Pekudi ha-Mishkan Yichud Vavkei, Mishkan ha'Edos Yichud Yudkei, V'nikras b'china Zuli, Ki yichud ava shorshay me'atik ve'en sof. Because the yichud of ava is rooted in atik. Va'ayin zeh chelik beis al posik mimamakim koresicha beparshas Truma al posav yichud litzruma. Ve'af agav shahakorban ikre hamshachas mad mizah, and even though korban principally is a drawing down of mayim duchrin from zah, kameshkos b'zerek b'geras hakedesh simin kavches mikol mokim hariksiv vayisha Hashem el hevel hamshachas shinayin nehoirin. Ba'ayin baramaz reish parshas tzav kodesh hakadoshim tlas reishin. Va'ayin me'inyan sav es tishmeru lahakriv v'gemara peda dalet detainis peda testis psachim tzadik vav amadalov u'barabis bereishis gabi la'avdo l'shomra toldos parshas sav emoir Bamidbar Nasa Pedi Yud Beis Parshas Ba'Loischa Pasagas Vali Reish Parshas Pinchas V'Seif Parsha Shira Shirim Rabba Seif Parshas Savarech Bacharuzim B'Psiktar De'Eicha Seif De'Omarasa V'Heima Ka'odam Avru Bris Shira Shirim Rabba Seif Parshas Reishcha Alecha Kekarmel.